Hi everyone, this is Isis Fernandez here, and I am doing, I think, my last video on the actual design of my class. So if you've seen any of my previous videos, you've seen kind of how I took it from, oh my god, what am I gonna do, to all the way to pretty much having a skeleton version of a module or a couple of modules. So I wanted to show you kind of how one of the modules turned out, a completed module turned out. So just a recap, I started off with looking at what I have and taking inventory. I took inventory of what I had access to, what I didn't have access to and needed to have access to, um, then taking inventory of my class, how best they learned, who was prepared to go online, who had been online before, and vice versa. So from there, we did the online survey, and the online survey told me lots of things about my students, including, and not limited to, who needed extra help with trying to find resources to have them go online. Also, kind of how they wanted to receive the information I was giving them. One of the questions I asked was more of a scenario question. How do you best study, or how do you best work? And for the most part, a big chunk of them wanted interactive things. And yet another chunk just wanted to be able to read and answer questions. So I kind of split it towards the middle, and as I was thinking about what was left in the semester to teach, I thought about, okay, how can I make this interactive? So if you saw the last video, you kind of saw a shell of the rest of my class, my week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And so I want to show you week 10 because I've just finished it with the dates and everything. So if you remember, I started off with a shell of things and a list of kind of the things that I wanted to do, and the things that usually a module has, which you introduce the lesson and you have the lesson and you have at least one item there that you actually take an actual grade from. So you have a lot of formative assessment till you have the actual summative assessment. And this is all asynchronous, right? So, oh, let's not look at that. So let's look at what week 10 looks like. Yay! Okay, so week 10 is I'm an English professor at Lone Star College Kingwood in Houston, Texas, if I have not said that already. And so week 10 is usually when I start social issues. And I made the decision that I was going to start on week 10 and dump week 9, which is where we left off on. I just dumped week 9 and what we were reading on week 9 and told them, forget about it. Like, you can go ahead and like start trying to return that book because we're done with it. And so I said, we're going to start at week 10. And week 10 is when we start talking about social issues, specifically freedom of speech. So just another little recap here. I labeled, this is in my sandbox, and this is where I can actually play with everything and play with the design outside of the prying eyes of our beautiful, wonderful students. So that way I don't get 10 million questions. So this is what I have here. I have all of these say COVID, right? And so this is how I know that these are brand new in my sandbox, which means that when I move them over to my course, my actual live course, these were new, I will actually take the word COVID off, and I will not delete is not the right word, but I will do this. I will hide, there you go, that's the word, you will hide the current week 10 through week 15. So week 10, it all starts here. And so I have an introduction here, kind of what we're going to do, some new things that we're going to do. We're going to read a new essay. They're going to use tools like Edpuzzle and Flipgrid, and I'll talk a little bit about what those are and how I'm using them. And then we're going to discuss social issues and how they appear in literature. As always, I am a QM certified person. And so one of the things that you want to be able to do is tie your work in the module to some of the learning outcomes. And last time we talked, I tied into pretty much almost all of them. I went ahead and looked at what I'm actually directly dealing with and got rid of the rest of them. And so these are the ones that I'm working on in this module. This is a lot. It is a lot. Usually it's like 2 or 3 per module, but this just happens to be a pretty full module. So I'm working on a lot of things here. And I'm also prepping them for a lot of things as well. And so I also tell them what to do next. And the next thing I tell them to do is to go to the checklist. And if they have any questions, to email me or click this link where they can actually schedule some time with me for my office hours, which I actually do through web conference. And I actually use Zoom for that, and it works pretty well. Calendly is free. And when you sign up, I think you get well, back then when I signed up, you get the blown out version for free for 30 minutes, for 30 days. But the basic one is actually will work fine. You pretty much set your calendar between my office hours or Monday through Thursday between 1 and 5. And so they click on this link and they can say, let's go ahead and click on it. See? They can literally say, all right, I am going to go here or here to try to see Miss Fernandez. So they can just, click on whatever day and click on whatever time. You can hit confirm or they hit confirm and they give their name, their email, and what they want to meet about. And that goes straight on my calendar. And then I send them a link through Zoom. As soon as I get it, it pops into my email. And then we are scheduled and ready to go. So let's go back to D2L. All right. So last time I talked about checklists, and checklists are a little bit of a pain. And so one way to do checklists is that you can actually embed them into your D2L classroom. I have had a love-hate relationship with it because you can kind of link everything through the checklist, and the student can just go to the checklist and do the entire module. But that was a lot more time consuming because what if something changes in the module? Then you have to change the checklist. I decided to do a link to a Word document and just do a regular list like this. Any student can print this out or can save this and check and literally X out in these little boxes. Hey, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And so they know they have everything that they have to do for week 10 or for this particular week. This is super easy. This is just from OneDrive. You can just get this done. This is actually a grid that you can just insert. You can just insert, I'm sorry, it's a table. You can just insert this way and it's done. And so if I have to change something and I have 3 sections of 1302, I can just change one thing instead of changing 3 things. And it's just it works a little bit easier for me. So let's go back to the module. I'm going to talk about the visual part of this here in a second, but I'm just going to talk about the functionality right now. So every section of this, let me show you what the outline of this looks like. It's really here on the side. Here's week 10, and here's every folder that's inside of that module or every step that's inside of this module. I have a checklist so they know what to do, but every one of these actually has instructions of some sort. So it tells the student what to do. So if they wanted to start off with the lesson, you can just click here and there's actual instructions on the lesson. I tell them what we're going to learn, and it's just like introducing any lesson that you would do in your face-to-face classes. The lesson here, let's actually look at it. I'm going to click on it. And all the links here are set to link, all the links are set to link out. So they're not housed on D2L. And that is a conscious decision because I wanted a little bit more functionality, especially for something like Edpuzzle. Now, Edpuzzle allows you to bring in any YouTube video or any video really, into the Edpuzzle universe, and you can embed any questions you want in here. And so a student could essentially start this lesson, and then they start off with a note, and I give them directions here in this note, and once they're done reading that, they hit continue. And it's my beautiful voice that they listen to get this this wonderful, very short 13-minute and 32-second lesson that's embedded with a bunch of questions. And all the questions are here. There's like so they know what the list of questions are. You can embed this into D2L. I just find that they don't get all this wonderful stuff when it's embedded into D2L, which is why I'm linking out from it. And so that these questions kind of help them understand the lesson a little bit more, ask them basic comprehension questions, and there can be actual critical thinking questions too. I can actually look, grade book, go to my classes. So I can actually look to see, and no one has done anything because no one's allowed to do anything right now. And I can see how much they've watched, if they've turned in. Let me look at something. Somebody actually, I assigned this and didn't do the right dates, and so someone's already done it, Gia. But I'm glad she did, so she can get her knife sharpened for her wonderful analyzation skills. And so you can see here what questions they've answered, if they answer them correct or not. If I want to comment, this is another way to give some feedback to students. Edpuzzle is free. Very free, but you're limited on space, so like don't get crazy, but Edpuzzle is free. Let's go back to the module. So that's one of the things that students were talking about. They wanted some interaction, and so I gave them interaction. Again, every one of these things here has some direction. So the next thing that they do is a flip grid, and I promised I would talk about flip grid. So this is actually one of my coworkers turned me on the flip grid, and I really like it. So this is an activity that I actually do in my face-to-face class, and we talk about the First Amendment and the 5 guaranteed freedoms under the First Amendment, and we talk about different court cases that have challenged the First Amendment in one way, shape, or another. And so I give them a bit of an intro here, and then I give them the directions. I go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I give them specific directions and where to go. I write down these scenarios, usually in a class. I have these scenarios on index cards, and so I just hand them out so they don't get a chance to choose. But of course here, they're going to get a chance to choose. And so what they will do is they will go to Flipgrid, and what I'll do is I'll probably just go to Flipgrid here, and sign in, educator sign in, so you see what it looks like. So this is what that assignment looks like. The directions are on D2L, so I just tell them go to D2L and look at the scenarios, and do the steps. There's a wonderful gif of Judge Judy here. Yay, Judge Judy! And they can record their response here. So they just hit that, and of course I'm already using my camera and whatnot and my external phone or my external microphone. So let me try to see if I can X out of that, or not X out of that. Okay, you don't need to see me. So they can, it just starts up on their computer, and then they can give me their thoughts. And that is another way to do discussion boards. It's interactive. I don't have to grade it. I can take a grade if I want to. And there's ways on Flipgrid to do like a rubric, and you can grade it that way. Or you could just not grade it and have them just do the assignment. It's up to you. That's one of those things that you want a short response that I said in my last video. You want a short response that you don't really have to mess with a lot. And so that is one way of doing it. So that hits two things. It's interactive and it's a short response so they can do very quickly. And it also falls in line with what I'm doing. You've probably seen how I have a link for each one of my sections. And so when I transfer this over to the live course, what I am going to do is delete two other the other classes that it's not. For example, if I upload this to my 1302-2011 class, I'm going to delete 15 and 20. And I just packed it all in together because I don't want to go back and forth and back and forth, because that's how you get the wrong link for the wrong class. So I want to make sure that's great. Okay, so that's the Flipgrid here. And then of course, they have a reading, and you can actually place a link to the readings and videos here. And let me show you how this looks like when you're actually designing this. So you're in this part. Let me go here. I'm sorry. Read and watch. So this is what you see, and you have this text box here that you can make bigger. You could put a link here, and that would be the step. So I would do that, but here's the thing. On the student side, they get this bar that says you've completed something or not based on what you click on. And if you put these links here, it's going to show that they didn't do a step when indeed they did. So I went ahead and put these links here. And so they have that other bar, plus the checklist to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm so very proud of this. And so here is the discussion board. Yay! And the discussion board is something that I already had. So literally all I did was bring it into the module. There's already questions I want them to use. They have to go through the rhetorical situation process. One of the questions in the lesson is actually, what is the rhetorical situation? What are the steps of the rhetorical situation? So they got a little bit of a review before they actually are doing the summative assessment. This is where the grade from the module will come from. It will come from this board. This is the one thing that I will grade. I will look at their Flipgrid, and I will look at their lessons and see how they're doing. And because it's asynchronous, I don't have to completely watch it, but I am going to look at it to make sure that they're understanding the material. And if they're not understanding the material based on the feedback, then I'll adjust as needed. And of course, they have a journal. This, of course, is I already had, so I just brought this in. I did the dates. Yay, the dates are correct. They are accurate. And then I tell them what to read for next week. And this is something that I talked about last time. And at this point, this is where I am actually going to talk about visuals. So as you can see, my module's super visual. I have pictures for everything. And I get the pictures from two sources. Pixabay, which is free, and also Unsplash, which is free. And that makes it pretty visual. And the reason why is because, let's face it, online and anything online is a visual medium. And so I want them to be able to kind of rest their eyes from all the words, essentially. So here is where I tell them what I'm going to want them to do for next week. And they have some homework. They're going to read and annotate these two stories, and they're very, very short. And what they're going to do is going to look at these guiding questions. And then as they read, I want them to ask 4 questions. And the questions cannot be, I don't understand it. What does this mean? It has to be questions about the stories that are very specific. They've done this before in face-to-face, so I just brought it into the module. And these are great questions because A, I can see who actually read because they have to put their name. And B, I can use these questions for discussion questions in my next module. If I wanted to do a synchronous discussion with them through Zoom, or if I wanted it to use those questions as discussion board questions for my next week, because next week we're actually going to talk about these stories. So what you see here, how I'm embedded this here, this is actually the forms from OneDrive. We are a Microsoft Office, a Microsoft campus, so I try to use as much Microsoft stuff as possible. You can easily do this with Google Forms. I just happen to use Microsoft Forms because we are a Microsoft campus. So I just wanted to keep everything as linear as possible. Again, here are the links for these two stories. See how I've linked them in this verbiage, but I've also linked them here. Again, on the student side, there's a bar that says whether you've completed a step or not, and I want them to be able to have completed that bar. I also have something where they can start thinking about the paper that's coming up. And in fact, what they read today and what they'll read later on is fair game for the paper. So I went ahead and opened up this assignment for them to see. And this is kind of like a thing in D2L that's kind of not glitchy, but I hope it is fixed soon, or at least kind of have a workaround. They can't see an assignment until you open an assignment. And sometimes when you open the assignment so they can see it, they're not ready to do the assignment. And yet they turn something in when they're not ready. And then you look at it and you are disappointed, and also they are confused. So I'm hoping that will be fixed by D2L, hopefully one day in the future in an upcoming update. But you have to open up the assignment for them to see it. And right now, I'm okay with it, and so it is what it is. I do have a video here on how to do the assignment, and this is just something I already have for most of my assignments, especially essays. I talk about how to do the assignment. This is the structure. This is what a possible thesis could look like. This is how you put it together. So there's no questions later on about what I'm looking for. And that is week 10. So that's what it looks like. Again, there's lots of visual stuff here. Pixabay and Unsplash are very, very helpful for this. I try to make this as streamlined as possible. It seems like it's a lot of things, but it's not really a lot of things. It's a lot of reading through things and thinking about things on the student's end, but there's only one thing that is for a grade in this module, and that is the discussion post. Their journal isn't due until the next week, so it's not even due until module 11. So they don't even have a journal ready. Just knowing some of my students, they're going to want to do the journal this week because they are very accustomed to doing journals, and so they're going to want to knock that one out. And there it is. One thing I do want to say, I use the same photo here for reading and for journals. I don't know if you saw the journal one. Let's click on that. Yeah. So for journals, it's the same photo. For readings, it's the same readings. It's almost kind of like a signal. Oh, this is a reading. This is a journal. All right, I know what this is. I know what to do. So that's another visual way for students to kind of get used to things. It may not be useful to you because it's COVID campus, and so you probably haven't been online all semester, but I turned my class into a hybrid, so they're used to seeing those wonderful pictures. Okay, so that is my week 10 already completed, ready to rock and roll module for week 10. Week 11 doesn't look like that at all. Let me give you a sneak peek of what that looks like. It's starting to come together. It has nothing of here. I haven't done the checklist yet. I do the checklist. It's the last thing. I do the checklist as the last thing. Once I'm pretty sure this is how I want the things to go, then that's when I do the checklist, because I just don't like changing them. As you can see, here's their journal. It's due this week. I started doing things. This is going to be a Quizlet, and Quizlet's pretty cool for review. And they've played this in class before, so I'm just giving them a link. And just in the other module where I had English 1302, 2011, and 2015 and 2020, that's like the course numbers. I'm going to do the same thing here and use the same tactic, delete the ones I don't need per class. Here's going to be another Flipgrid, and this is a lesson. And this is actually a lesson that I did a voiceover and over PowerPoint. that will hopefully come up. You see how it's a little bit of a lag? That's why I'm kind of wanting to convert this into a YouTube video. And that way I can also bring it into Edpuzzle and embed some questions in there for their comprehension. So I'm looking to do that soon, but I put it in there just to remind myself that that's what I was doing. And that looks like it's pretty much the week. There's a discussion board that's already in there. And then, of course, another coming up. What's coming up? Oh, guess what? This journal from the stuff you read this week is coming up, and it's due next week. Oh, guess what? That social issues research paper, it's coming up, and this is when it's due. So, so they have all this, and so when I do the checklist that goes here, that's also going to be on the checklist, right? I want you to notice that on the checklist also, there's no due dates. Let me go back to 10. There's no due dates. And the reasons why I didn't put any due dates is because everything's due like by Monday, 11:59 p.m. because every module opens at the same time, closes at the same time. So that's what we got here. Yay, wonderful, wonderful things. But I may do this for the social issues paper. I don't know. May. It's still up in the air. I still have time. So that is what my week 10 looks like, and what the module looks like, and what future modules are going to look like. To make you feel better, this is what, like, I think I got to 13 and there's nothing in there. Well, there's structure and that's it. There's nothing in there. So 10 is done. 11 is getting close to done. 12 looks like a hot mess. There's some things in there. So little by little, we're putting this together. So you just have to take it week by week. Go slow. I tend to want to do all the videos all at the same time, so I can just do a whole day of just recording videos. I have a very noisy house, in case you couldn't tell, and so I got to take the time when it's quiet to record the video so I have it. And so that's where we're at. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Catch you guys later. Bye.